Welcome to the Craft Life. In every episode, we'll dive deep into the rabbit hole of all things branding and marketing within the craft beer industry. Be prepared to be injected with tips, processes, and ideologies from those in the industry that are executing in a unique and creative fashion. If you're looking for ways to cut through all that noise and find or redefine your craft by creating long-lasting impressions, memorable experiences, all while having consistency in your attitude, belief, and values, then the craft life is a good fit for your life. Let's get crafting. Welcome to the Craft Life, episode 2, where we'll be discussing the thought process behind designing the artwork for your products. Yes, we have taken a few weeks off from doing podcasting, but now we're back, and we're back with a real inspirational brewery. This particular brewery basically started off with a group of friends who supported, or actually 24 friends and their family members who supported 3 individuals in their idea and their beginnings to start a brewery. And this brewery is named the Beat Culture Brewery. And they were able to make this into a reality. And that's a really deep story. And I really love hearing people coming together selfishly to support the dream of others is super cool. And I think we need more of this in the world, people supporting each other for sure. So if you haven't heard of the Beat Culture Brewery, it's one of Miami's latest craft breweries to open. The Beat Culture prides itself in highlighting Miami's culture by paying homage to all things that make the Magic City so darn special and unique. And if you haven't been to Miami, definitely check out their Instagram and their Facebook, and everything exudes Miami's culture, from their bottling to their actual brewery and everything like that. And that's also evident in the beers, the mead, and the extensive food menu that's over at the Beat Culture Brewery. But for one thing that I really like about the Beat Culture Brewery is that they also team up with other craft Miami makers in their ingredients to include honey, chocolate, and coffee. So without further ado, the man of the hour, we have Alan Espino. Did I get it right?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. Yes.
Nailed
And
it.
Alan is the co-founder and president of the Beat Culture Brewery. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Alan, you were born in Miami, and your journey into craft beer started in the earlier days when you became super fascinated with gaining more knowledge of beer fermentation. And this actually started before you became having the legal age to actually drink. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Around 18 years old. So it started with undergrad. I went to school down here and started studying microbiology with the idea of going towards a different career path, veterinary medicine. But yeah, during my microbiology class, it was the inception of the metabolic life cycle of yeast that I found just so ridiculously complex and fascinating all at the same time. So using a microorganism to create alcohol was just seemed, I don't know, alien life. Like we're looking towards Mars to see for inspiration, but we have aliens in our backyard. So it just seems so crazy to me and so interesting. So that was very much the spark of it. The complexity of it was really what sparked my interest. And then the product afterwards is obviously beer. It's obviously a charming product. I love beer, and the layers of styles and flavors and everything else that you could do with that, especially during a time back in 2004, 2005, where there was such a void in craft beer. It was a lot more of the commoditized, unremarkable stuff. Even though Sierra Nevada was there here, and there was still, a lot of that, just again, unremarkable. The stuff that you chug at tailgates, type of beer. So there's a time and place for that beer. I'm not throwing it away, but it wasn't the fun, creative stuff that we're now accustomed to as craft beer. So that the inception was very much in undergrad, where I wasn't able to drink, and then actually my senior thesis was on anaerobic respiration, where I used E. coli positive pond water to show that the beer making process does essentially sterilize or make it aseptic, the product, right? So you could drink it. So that was fun. Yeah.
Nice. So how did you guys all get together? You and the 2 other founders get together to start the brewery?
The other one is my brother. So I've known him for about 34 years. Yeah. So he's an attorney. He's the knower of all things contracts and business structure and licensing and build out and all the really terrible stuff that people don't really account for when like dreaming of owning a business or in a brewery in this case. Those are things that he's very, very good at: land use contracts, government relations, permitting, licensing, all that stuff, which is amazing. He's the kind of guy that could drink Yingling all day, and like, you know, he likes bourbon as well, so that helps. So he's not quite a beer guy. He became a beer guy through us. And then our head brewer is Eric Durr. He and I actually, we played Little League baseball together. His dad was our T-ball coach here in Miami Springs, like just about 2 miles north of here. So it was, yeah, childhood friends. And then eventually we crossed paths again. He was going away to brewing school in North Carolina. And I'm like, okay, I've been really wanting to plan this brewery for like forever. We're obviously missing the talent, right, to actually to make the vision. So that was a kind of like serendipitous. So as soon as he got back, we just started cranking out, and as we were able to raise all the capital we needed through friends and family. It took about 9 years or so to raise all the initial capital, because it's with any startup, there's a lot of passion behind it, but if you don't have capital to make the passion a reality, it's pretty challenging. And that's where we were, right? We had this desire, we had this need. We just didn't quite have the money. So with finding investors, losing them, having landlord dying, it was a series of,
Wow.
or two steps forward, 3 steps back type of thing. But then eventually, persistence and tenacity is key, I think. If you screw up enough, all you got to do is get it right once. That's our story. Yeah.
Awesome. So what is your exact role?
I'm co-founder and president. So I handle all things about, you know, brand building, growth, overall management of the whole entity, both for on dining experience, manufacturing and distribution. So image and likeness, collaborations, building strategy, and all that kind of stuff. See you later, buds. And so yeah, it's everything. It's a culmination of all the things that I've just been really obsessed with and passionate. I'm able to use this as a vehicle to execute. And I think with design and packaging and all that, it's just a lot of influence of things that I value tremendously, which I value Miami quite a bit.
Nice. Which leads into today's topic. What is the thought process that goes into designing the artwork for your bottles and your cans? So, you know, for me, a lot of people say don't judge a book by its cover. And I truly believe that's wrong, especially with a lot of consumers now. I mean, I'm guilty for that too. You know, you walk down an aisle wherever you're getting, you know, your beer at, not even if you're shopping for beer, and something just pops at you, you know, and I can say that's true because I've tried and love the labeling of your Saki-san rice lager in the can of it, and that's amazing. It looks awesome, the colors, design, and it's actually super refreshing and tastes as good as the label looks. So I want to say well done to you guys.
Oh, good, thank you.
So yeah, let's get into that, because you know that theory that people say that you know, you see if your bottle is not labeled correctly, it's going to get passed, because on the shelf stores, there's millions of bottles, people would get distracted. And I think that having a can that's, or a bottle that's super unique and it looks out and stands out is definitely going to grab the eyes of our consumers.
Yeah, I think so. So I could start out by saying that labeling isn't everything. Some of the world's best bourbon wine I've had are very discreetly labeled, right? So the product speaks for itself. But it's a big but in there. There is an opportunity to stand yourself out, build a message, build your image using this graphical interpretation of a beer label, right? And we get to have fun with it. So for us, being that you mentioned grocery stores, we're not really competing in grocery stores. We're not in grocery stores, so we don't have that level of you need to stand out on the shelf. But that's not to say you can't or shouldn't stand out because you're not in grocery stores. So for us, it's still very, very important. So a big influence for me, and at least for the brewery, is there's an industrial designer named Raymond Lowry. He designed for Studebaker. He was an industrial designer, so trains, planes, automobiles, and also a graphic designer. He would design just a bunch of different logos. He designed toasters. All this was like during the streamlined modern movement, 40s, 50s, if you will. So this guy, just a ton of influence in industrial design, where Art Deco is more of like that artistic medium. Industrial, like a streamlined modern, is the application of that into buildings, cars, those wavy vehicles, kind of like our logo back there. So it's very much hearkening to Art Deco, but the industrial application of it, right? So it was challenging to put that application into an art medium because it's never really been done. So it was a little challenging to find the exact words because I'm not an artist by any means. So it was hard to convey the right words to our very talented designer. His name's Jack, to help us curate this particular voice and style that mirrored us. So for me, it was very important to do that. Another influence source was not the iPhone, but the iPhone box, right? When you get your iPhone, it's in this pristine little white, almost like religious experience, opening it up. And then it's just so amazing. So much so that I'm pretty sure I have all of my boxes still of all the iPhones I've had. Exactly. So you almost feel guilty throwing it. It's just a white box, but it's executed so like finessefully. It seals perfectly, the air escaping it and all that. So even though it's white, the message of thoughtfulness and design, and it was fantastic. So packaging is important. Maybe not the bright colors, but the execution is very important. And that's something that we try to have a foot in both, where industrial design, our particular voice and art style is important, but at the same time, simplicity, hearken that as much as we can, right? So you mentioned Saki-san. We try to also keep a foot in Miami, but seeking influence in all the things that we like, right? So obviously inspired by Japanese style rice lagers. We smashed our logo, our branding with Miami meets Japan, right? So if our beach line had Japanese influence, so that's where that style came out of, and I think it came out extraordinary. So it's a rice lager that we dry hopped with lemon drop hops, and man, it's so crushable. Yeah, I have a keg of it at my house, and yeah, I drink it too often.
So when into that one, so what was the thought process that went into creating that? Was it like I know you said you took the Japanese style meet Miami, but how were you able to articulate? Because I see that the problem that a lot of owners might be, I have this image, and sometimes you can have the most talented designer, but you're not able to articulate the design that's in your head. So how do you work through that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at least in my prior life, I worked as a microbiologist. I worked in diagnostics and biotech, right? So creating diagnostic protocols. So in order to do that, we had to define all these requirements, processes, painfully thorough in extreme detail, like even on a molecular level, right? So not that you need to be painfully detailed there, but it was an exercise I took from my prior job experience. I also got storyboards. A friend of mine, he's actually awesome advertising guy. He works for Nintendo right now. He turned me on to storyboarding. So you just get a ton of different pictures, or mood boarding, I should say, a ton of different pictures, influences, like find whatever, colors, shapes, anything you like, gather them as much as you can, and then lean them out, and then try to build like a vision of like a visual display of what you kind of like, and then have text to then support it. And then having powwows, like verbal conversations, like walking through it, to having just 30-minute conversation about this is where my mind is at, and then that seems to work really well with design. It also helps having a very, very good designer. Jack also, he's the proprietor of the Miami Supply Company. He does all kinds of awesome graphic arts and very Miami grounded. So we wanted to be from Miami, but I didn't want to beat you over the head type of Miami, because again, I'm Miami born and bred, but I don't live on the beach, right? So the visuals that people have of Miami, it's like not everybody from New York lives on Fifth Ave, right? So it's that kind of idea that we try to convey in our artwork and in our branding. So pretty much being thorough with your details, making sure you communicate it well, and also asking the designer, asking whoever, like, do you understand what I mean? It's like, should I articulate it differently? Just making sure that they understand. There's nothing wrong with that. Even like in a relationship with your wife, just say, are we clear? Are we on the same page? It's okay to ask that. And then having the visuals to support it. So man, Pinterest, Google Images, there are historical documents, historical information. There's a local museum here on streamlined, modern, and pop in Art Deco style, which I reference quite a bit. Industrial design, old car shapes and designs. our streamlined our streamlined lager is going to be coming out soon, and that's going to be heavy influence from like the Lincoln Zephyr style car. Our emblem would actually be like a little hood ornament. So there's a lot of influence on all around you. So the more open you are, the more eyes you have, the more it's like in the back of your brain. It's a lot easier to gather influence when you just think about it all the time.
So how much time do you personally take for a new um, design that you're doing for a new type of beer
I guess it depends.
before
So
you
some of
actually
them,
get the designer?
yeah. So, but I do have to. Our designer does. He's very thorough as well. So once he has the requirements, he executes it well, and then he's like, actually, here's a little tweak. I didn't quite like the shading on this other thing. So that's his level of discipline. I guess that varies per person. But for me, some of them come easy. So we made a guava pastry beer, right? And so down here, it's a Cuban staple. It's a triangular pastry that's stuffed full of like a puree of guava, right? So we made a beer version of that. For that one, the inception was pretty much easy. So I wanted a 57 Bel Air in a teal blue color with an oversized pastry that looked like a mattress on the hood of their car and somebody holding onto it on the roof of their car. So that one, it's as outlandish as it sounded, it was pretty linear and pretty easy to curate. Meanwhile, some of them do require a little bit more thought, a little bit more creativity. Sometimes we don't have a name, sometimes we do. Yeah, it kind of all depends. Sometimes it's easy, and sometimes it just takes a little more due diligence.
Perfect. So before we wrap this up, if you were giving somebody the first step, hey, you're a brand new home brewery coming out with your labels, or you just opened up your brewery, or you're in a concept of creating up your flagship style art design for your beer, like what would you suggest the first? I know you said a lot of different things that people should do, but what do you think you should first do when planning out the design for your bottle, or the thought process behind your bottle or label for your bottle?
Sure. I think it's important to first have like your mission statement. Like, what are you trying to do here? Besides making beer, what is it that you're trying to accomplish here? Where are you located? And do you have a particular art style or lack thereof? Are you just the name of a person? Are you an idea? Are you an arbitrary phrase? Like, so all that needs to be defined pretty well to at least like focus a little bit. Because my fear is always there's so much influence, right? That I look at and I say, okay, I really love that. I like that style. Do you like weighted design? Do you like surrealism? Do you like realism? Do you like pop? So it's such a wide gamut. Do you want to be all over the place? Is that your shtick? There's a brewery up in Collective Arts up in Canada that their shtick is every packaging of theirs has a different artist. So the styles are, you put the cans in a row, you wouldn't know that they're all from the same brewery. So that's their shtick, which works well. But for us, I want a little bit more continuity, recognizability. I don't think there's a right or wrong way of doing it. For us, what works well is this is who we are. This is our voice. We're trying to accomplish like a homegrown, locally made Miami boys want to do Miami beer. And we love our backyard. So we celebrate all that. And we also poke fun at the things that we don't particularly like either. So we're not too intense. So, but also there is influence on particular art styles, movement, industrial design, artists that we admire, cars that we admire. Uh, I think having more understanding of what your brand is or what it wants to be when it grows up, I think that's very, very helpful.
Okay, great. And like he said, first step is kind of understanding who you are, your why, and it'll really help isolate or at least guide you down the path of how you want to start. There's no wrong answer of, going through a, different art design for every product that you're releasing, or stick with something that's going to symbolize your brand. So that was a great thing. I appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in visiting Beat Culture, is located at 725 Northwest 11th Street in Miami. Their website is beatculture.com. You can find them also on Facebook and Instagram at Beat Culture CO, and on Untapped at Beat Culture Brewery. So thank you everyone for tuning in to the second episode of The Craft Life. And today we discussed the thought process behind designing the artwork for your products. We hope that you got a few nuggets to help you on the way. And this is also applicable to anybody who's starting any type of businesses where you are designing any type of artwork that's going to be representing your business. So thank you very much, and hope you guys enjoyed the episode.